Welcome to the Women in Motorsports program. My name is Joe Saniega. With me, we have Hailie Sharp and Ben Schneider from Grid Encore, LastCar.info. A big special thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin Deschelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew for investing in the Grid Network through Patreon. Link in the video description. Want to invest in the Grid Network each and every month. Also, buy me coffee, YouTube super chat. Well, thank you on the air. Of course, leaderboard will be updating as that occurs. And of course, with this program recorded earlier, you could do a super thanks, and we'll thank you the next time we go on the air, whether that's Grid Live pre-race, the wrap-up, or any other program. And of course, subscribe, hit the bell icon, the easiest way to support us right here on the Grid Network, gridnetworktv.com, and across social media. Emily, Ben, let's get started. Been a while since we've been on the air, but one driver that has been getting a lot of positive attention has to be Jamie Chadwick. Of course, Jamie Chadwick is in ELMS competition, European Le Mans Series competition. And right now, LMP2, she is 2 for 2 with 2 wins. The 4 hours at the Castellet over at Paul Ricard circuit that we all familiar with, LMP2. We had also LMP2 Pro-Am, LMP3, and LMGT3. The IDEC sports team with Jamie Chadwick, Matthew Jabonet, and Danielle Hucadella. They won the race, and she becomes the first female overall race winner in sports car racing ELMS LMP2. In class, of course, Jamie Chadwick now tied with her teammates for the series points lead. Emily, I know we've discussed briefly on this program about her tendency to jump from W Series, Extreme E, then the road to Indy. Now here's sports car racing, but it appears she's settled in here. Do you feel like she has found that right fit, sports car racing, to settle in?
Well, as you said, Joe, she and her teammates took first in her prototype class at the 4 Hours of Barcelona back in April, and then earlier this month at Paul Ricard circuit in France. So the next race on her schedule with IDEC Sport is Imola in July, and then she's officially going to be halfway through her season. Of course, we're going to talk about it. She is slated to compete at Le Mans, and I think it's really objectively obvious that she's an extremely talented driver. And I think that's shown that she's been able to find success already in this new series. And I would even argue she's really established herself as the leader of her group within IDEC. So I think for me, having her just focus on this one racing series has really paid off. Obviously, as you mentioned, she has quite an extended background in all of these different forms of racing, from open wheel to sports car. And obviously, sports car is the most traditional path to prototype racing. So for me, I think, hats off to Jamie. It's incredibly exciting to have a woman at the top of the podium in her field, in her very specific, class. But with all that being said, yes, we have had such a discussion about her going from open wheel to testing, Formula E to sports car. And I know the last time we talked about Jamie Chadwick, we all had a bit of hesitation if this really was going to be it for her, if she was going to stick to this racing series. I personally still, without knowing her or ever having a conversation with her, the vibe that I get is that she's really incredibly passionate about open wheel racing. She remains to be an advisor with Williams F1. So I can't confidently on this day in May say that I can see her sticking with this. However, I also made similar comments about Alex Palou. I didn't have the vibe that he was going to win the 500, and I was very wrong about that. So I can absolutely be wrong about predicting Jamie's future as well. But Ben, curious to hear what your thoughts are on where she may be in the next few years.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because she does have such a diverse resume, so to speak, now with the different disciplines that she's raced in. But 2 for 2 in terms of these victories to start her new chapter of her career here in 2025. Obviously sports cars is different because you've got co-drivers and teammates in that regard, but you don't have, say, in Indy NXT, which is where she was the last couple of years. You have teammates, obviously, but you're not sharing the same car in the same race. Endurance racing is certainly jumped to a different discipline, but it's one that she seems to have made very well here. So again, obviously I'm not as much of a sports car expert as some of the others that we have here at this network, but I do know that winning is something that all race car drivers want to be doing. And I'd imagine that Jamie is having a fantastic time making this transition and enjoying life in this series here. So I think to answer the question, if the results are any indication, I think it's pretty clear that she's found the right fit for this chapter of her career.
Seems to be a great part of her racing career, going for different disciplines. Open wheel, we know that's very competitive. Sometimes finding that right seat can be a challenge, and it seems like this has been a really good effort for her in sports car racing with this group. Now, of course, we all know when it comes to sports car racing, here we are. June is just around the corner. The biggest race for sports car racing, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Jamie Chad will be making her first start in this year's running, which is the 93rd running of the 24 Hours of Le Mans LMP2 class. They won't be competing for the overall win. Of course, we have the hypercars there. But 24 hours, man, we know that's going to be a big task from a 4-hour race, 6-hour race to now twice around the clock. Overall, we see this race be pretty unpredictable. The challenges of racing through the night, potential weather. How would you rank Jamie Chadwick's chances for a class win at Le Mans and LMP2?
Well, I wouldn't put it past that team, but again, you've got to remember, like you said, Joe, this is a big jump even from 4-hour racing. You've got 24 hours that you've got to manage here. It's so easy for little things that are outside your control to get in the way, and you've also got in this new golden age of sports car racing, as I've heard our colleague Kobe Lambeth describe this era over the last few years here. You don't just have the ELMS cars competing for LMP2 honors. You've got a couple cars coming over from IMSA, just taking a look at the entry list here, a couple of other one-offs that are going to be part of that class. So it's a stacked entry list, as Le Mans always is. So I think that to predict a win might be a little bit setting the bar a little bit too high to say that they're the favorites. Again, I could be wrong on that because I don't follow sports car racing as closely here, but I wouldn't put it past them either if they're firing on all cylinders, as it seems like they have been through their first 2 ELMS races. But I do think it's a race that you have to go into knowing that it's going to be a challenge, and there's no other race like it in the world, except for maybe I suppose the 24 hours of Daytona might rival it here in the United States. But worldwide, it is the top endurance race around the globe, and I think that there's going to be a heightened level of competition because of that, and a heightened level of seriousness that all these drivers are going to be treating this race with. So when you put all that together, again, not saying that they can't do it, but I think we're going to have to wait until we get a little bit closer to the race and see how everybody's adapting to the track, where they qualify, etc., before we start picking favorites here.
Yeah, not too much more to add to what you've said, Ben. I think it's considered one of the top endurance race in the world for a reason, because of how challenging and demanding it is for drivers. I feel pretty confident that her and her teammates are going to do pretty well in Imola, but I can't necessarily say, that they're going to do extremely well in Le Mans. It's unlike anything that she's experienced so far, with just the length of the race itself. And then, as you mentioned, Ben, all of the elements at nighttime. Last year, the amount of rain that hit that race was wild. So I think going in, she has it against her that this is her first time ever doing this race. What she does have working towards her is that they've had an extremely successful outing at the first 2 races of the season. So hopefully that's giving her some confidence in her and her teammates' ability. But how cool would it be that we could come back here and cover that we had the first female winner ever in a prototype class? But as cool as it would be, I'm fully aware that this is arguably the most difficult race in the world. So yeah, a little hard to predict, just because of how unpredictable it is.
Very unpredictable. Anything could happen 24 hours. And of course, if you're following sports car racing, be sure to follow the Grid Endurance Performance Index, updated every Wednesday on Grid Tonight right here on the Grid Network. Let's switch over. Stock car racing here in the United States, Emily. We got plenty to talk about with ARCA.
Yes, and we've been waiting for Ben's triumphant return so we could talk about all of the ARCA things happening while you were away. But of course, the General Tire 150 had Isabella Robusto and Lady Bice in the field. Lady Bice came in with a top 10, but one lap down, unfortunately, in her number 2 Chevrolet. Isabella Robusto just had no luck with her day, ending back on lap 37 very early on in the race. The next ARCA race is June 6th, so it's coming right up. And Ben, how impressed were you with Lainey Bice's performance?
I think Lainey's done a great job. She's obviously got a big learning curve coming from late models onto some of these bigger tracks, the mile and a half that ARCA has been racing at. She did have a little bit of an issue with Isabella Robusto at the previous race at Kansas. The two of them tangled up a little bit. Unfortunately, that was the first of Isabella's unfortunate incidents that have ended her races prematurely. And very fortunate and very glad that she's okay. Obviously, she's had the concussion issues, and that was a very hard hit that she took at Kansas. But fortunately, she was able to come back for this race at Charlotte. Unfortunately, however, she was on the receiving end of something we talked about on Monday night, and that was Garrett Mitchell, a.k.a. Cletus McFarland, spinning the tires from the front row on a restart. She just had nowhere to go, and that, unfortunately, was the end of her race. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a moment. But as for Lainey, I think she also got caught up in top 10. Again, I think she's done a good job adapting. Obviously, it's a steep learning curve, but we'll see if she can continue to make those performance gains as the season goes on in her partial schedule with Rev Racing.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Ben, Isabella Robusto, she's just not having a great season. She's one finish in the top 20 at Kansas, 13th, and won third place at Talladega. Third place at Talladega, which was incredibly exciting. I know I shared about it, me personally, on this show. Ben, with Michigan next, can she turn her season around?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you look at what has happened to Robusto in several races this year, it hasn't been for a lack of speed or certainly not a lack of talent. It's just been, as I said on Encore Monday night, to borrow a phrase from David Hobbs, if she didn't have any bad luck, she wouldn't have any luck at all with how her season's been going so far here. So, again, the third place in Talladega was great, obviously. Her teammate Lawless Allen ended up winning that race, and Venturini's always been strong on those kinds of tracks, and I know they're going to give her a good car when it comes to the 2 mile track at Michigan here in a little over a week. So I think that it's absolutely an opportunity for her to turn her season around. And I'm confident, like I said Monday night, that at some point luck is going to flip for her, and she'll be able to put some good performances on the board here, because she does have the benefit of having that full season secured that she's doing with this team, unlike Gracie Trotter several years ago, who had only a limited schedule and really wasn't able to break out of the bad luck that plagued the start of her 2021 season. So I think Robusto's got plenty of opportunities to do just that, and maybe even park it in Victory Lane later this year. We'll see. I know, obviously, Gibbs and their 18 car Pinnacle with their 28 and 82, they're very, very tough to beat. Those are the class of the field for sure. But Venturini equipment, we know what that's capable of too. And if she's given the right opportunity and the right set of circumstances, I think she could absolutely turn her season around.
Well, like you said, it's not due to a lack of talent. So how exciting would it be if she had a fairy tale ending to her season, as you mentioned? But now let's head over a little bit further west, over in ARCA West. 18-year-old Holly Clark finished 10th at Colorado National Speedway. She was the first car one lap down in her number 72 Subway Chevy. Now it's a smaller field. There's only 12 cars on the field, and everyone finished the shortened race event. Had the race gone the full distance, Ben, do you think that it would have been a challenge for her to stay in the top 10, or was she showing good pace?
Yeah, this is the tricky thing with ARCA sometimes. You hear a driver gets a top 10, and then you hear there's only a 12-car field, and you say, is that really as impressive as it would be in a National Touring Series race? But I think for Hailie Clark making her debut here, local Subway franchisee coming on to sponsor that effort for her limited schedule that she's going to have this season, I think she did a very solid job. She was actually battling Eric Reed for ninth place when the weather hit. Eric ended up getting the free pass, so he's credited with the last car on the lead lap there in ninth place. So even though the results make it look like she was a lap down to him, they were actually battling for that free pass position when the rain approached. And yeah, very, very strange situation there, reminiscent of Chicago in the Xfinity Series a couple of years ago when they weren't quite at the halfway point, but the rain was so torrential, but they decided to call the race anyway. ARCA, I think, has a clause in their rule book allowing for extenuating circumstances like that to make a judgment call, be given a little bit more flexibility, and that's what they decided to do here. But yeah, I think for her first race, Hailie Clark did a very solid job. Unfortunate for Mariah Boudreau, who was the subject of my last car article that's going to be published sometime tomorrow. She was fighting with David Smith for the 11th place spot and ultimately ended up finishing 12th in last place in that event. But good to see her out there again at her home track as well. She won a late model race at Colorado National Speedway just last year, so fitting place for her to come back to the ARCA West Series. And hopefully we'll see Hailie Clark again out on the track soon. I don't know off the top of my head what the rest of her schedule for this season looks like, but hopefully we can see her back on the track sooner rather than later, because I think it was, all things considered, a pretty successful debut for her this past weekend.
Well, thank you so much, Ben. We're obviously looking forward to continuing the conversation about all of the female drivers we follow in ARCA. And now let's hand it back over to Joe to talk about another driver that we've talked about quite frequently on this show with Hailie Deegan.
Yes, over at INDY NXT. They're back after 2 rounds at the Indianapolis road course. Hailie Deegan, the lone female in both races, finished both races on the lead lap, 17th and 18th respectively. Now we're coming to Detroit. This will be Hailie Deegan's second street course event in INDY NXT. And this street course features really a big challenge. You got tight 90-degree corners in just about every corner. A couple of long straightaways, so locking up the brakes, going in too fast could be an issue. And of course, little room for error. The concrete walls are right there. Some of these straightaways are just super narrow. So Detroit, Emily, I feel might be the biggest test so far. But when you compare to what she's done so far at St. Petersburg, Barber Motorsport Park, and the Indy Road Course, do you agree this is going to be the biggest test of what she can do in that car?
Yes. To be blunt, absolutely. Not to say that the other tracks that she's raced on have not been difficult. I mean, objectively, Barber, we usually hear rumblings that it's the most similar track to a European course that you'll find, and it's quite a difficult track to race on. Indy is Indy. It's incredibly unpredictable about the number of wrecks that you're going to get there, even if you're not going out on the oval. It's obviously a very tricky course. And now you're combining both of those essentially and have a really narrow street thing. One of the few things that I think, sadly, that we've been able to say as a positive for Hailie Deegan is that she stayed out of trouble in some of these major crashes so far in these early stages of her season. I don't know if she's going to be able to stay out of trouble in Detroit. It is incredibly narrow. Thankfully for her, Will Power's not going to be racing in that series to give her any problems with pushing her. So that's one positive. But it is going to be an incredibly difficult outing for her. I really don't want to be negative, but she's still learning how to be an open wheel racer. And now she's going to Detroit where there's no room for error because you will go into the wall. So it's going to be a tough weekend for her.
Yeah, Jackson, if you're watching, I think your Baja Blast take on Will Power was maybe a year premature. Maybe it's starting to actually catch up, and you'll be proven right here with how these last few weeks have gone for Penske as a whole, but specifically for Will Power as well. But I'll tell you, for Hailie Deegan, yeah, it's going to be a big test. This is not an easy circuit. Obviously, we've seen in the top IndyCar series how much. I mean, Will Power's a two-time series champion and Indy 500 winner, and he's pulling these shenanigans in practice here. And obviously, these races have been marred by caution after caution in the past, even in that series as well. I know obviously this season has not been very much like that for the IndyCar series, and the Fox booth was so excited when we finally got a caution at the IMS road course, because we hadn't had one of those in multiple races. We'll see if that trend continues this weekend at Detroit. But for all the Indy NXT drivers, really, this is a big test and challenging circuit, and for Hailie Deegan, it's going to be no exception here.
For Hailie Deegan, I feel if she finished this race on the lead lap, completes all the laps, that's a big step towards the right direction. But we got to also say, when it comes to logging all the laps, finishing the races, while that helps, you also got to still show improvement. We know this is going to be a very challenging racetrack. Then we have more races, of course, throughout. But how soon are we going to be at the point where we say, okay, we need to see more than just you finishing the laps, finishing the races on the lead lap, but maybe start aiming for those top 10 finishes?
Yeah, Joe, I mean, just to kind of recap what you just mentioned, she was the last driver on the lead lap, both in race 1 and race 2 at IMS. She finished 17th and 18th respectfully. And she was starting in last place for both of those races. So as I mentioned, it's obviously a positive that she stayed out of trouble and that she's not having any mechanical issues like some of her competitors are that we've seen so far. But on the restarts in those races, you could visibly see her and a gap between her and the car ahead of her. And it was just so obvious, the difference in pace. So I don't know when we're going to start seeing Hailie Deegan finish in the top 10. I want it for her. I'm manifesting that we start seeing improvements, but we are all here, especially on this show, being extremely cognizant that this is not only her rookie year ever in Indy NXT, this is her rookie year ever in a single seater. So I feel like we are doing a good job of giving her grace. And to your point, Joe, I think it would be a huge victory for her just to stay out of trouble, finish on the lead lap in Detroit. But my heart kind of broke for her when I was seeing the pace difference between her and the car ahead of her. What a difference between this year and last year, where we saw Jamie Chadwick on the podium. But yeah, we got to start seeing a little victories here and there from her in terms of like, maybe she gets an overtake done, and she's ending the race in 13th on her own accord and not because of cars dropping out. But I think if she was able to finish a handful of times before the end of the season in the top 10, that would be really great for her confidence, for her sponsors' confidence, her team's confidence. But we got to start seeing a little improvements here and there, because it's been a pretty non-exciting start of Hailie Deegan's Indy NXT career.
I would say 2026, to be quite honest. I think with how far back she is right now, again, I would love to be proven wrong, but I think, we just had the practice 1 results come in this afternoon as we were taping this. She's still over 5 seconds off of the pace that Dennis Hauger is setting now. To be fair, Dennis Hauger is running away with the championship already and looks like he could be probably in an IndyCar as soon as possible, maybe even before the end of this year. If a seat were to open up, I think he would be a top free agent. But even looking past that, the top 11 cars here, all within a second of Hauger, and it's 2.5 seconds back to 16th, and then another 2.5 back to 20th, which is where Deegan finds herself. So I think she still has a long ways to go. I'm not saying she can't get there, but I think it's a little unrealistic to be able to say she's going to make up. I mean, just to get those 2.5 seconds would still put her in the back quarter of this practice timing and scoring here. And then you talk about trying to fight for overtakes and fight for position throughout the course of an entire race distance. It's going to take some time for her to get up to speed there. I am curious. The caveat to this is we've got a couple of ovals coming up here. We'll be at Gateway and then Iowa, and then closing the season in Milwaukee and Nashville. That I think is going to be an interesting situation for her, because when Jimmy Johnson made the transition from stock cars to open wheel racing in IndyCar, He never really got up to speed, if we're being honest, on the road and street courses, but he fired right out of the gate at Texas with a 6th place finish, and then followed it up with another top 5 finish, his only top 5 finish of his IndyCar career at Iowa later that season. So I think she's got a much better chance of success just because of how much NASCAR and stock car racing she's done the last several years. Much better chance of running in and around the top 10 at one of those 4 tracks later in the season. But as for this weekend at Detroit, then when we go to the Road America and Mid-Ohio's and Laguna Secas of the world, Joe, when you're out there later this year at Portland, I would be very pleasantly surprised, but very surprised nonetheless, if she's running anywhere other than the last Carmelou lap, to be quite honest. Again, I'm not saying that to disparage her or say that she can't get there eventually, but when you've got that much ground to make up, you also have to be realistic with your expectations in terms of how quickly that ground can be made up over the course of a season here. And I think 2026, having a full season under her belt, that's going to be when you would start seeing her make those gains if she is in fact able to do that.
2026. I mean, sometimes you feel a rookie needs that second year to show what they can do. I think for Hailie Deegan, especially coming from stock cars, off-road racing, very different than open wheel racing. And those ovals could be the benefits. Now, of course, Gateway, that will be the first oval of the year after Detroit. Great opportunity for Hailie Deegan, even if for some reason she has a lousy weekend at Detroit, come to Gateway, put a strong run. But of course, if we're talking about ovals, you mentioned the ovals we got later in the season, including Nashville, which end the season. I think people have to bring up, since we're talking Indy NXT, it used to be Indy Lights, the Freedom 100, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I've been seeing across social media people reposted the 4-wide finish at IMS with Patrick Dempsey getting that win. But we don't run these cars at Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the oval, just the road course. And I can understand some people say, well, you want the prestige of your first win at Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the oval in an Indy car. And I used to be that way when I first remembered the Freedom 100 being introduced. But now, I gotta be honest, I feel I have really changed to where it's like, I think Indy NXT should be included in the oval race. Because at the end of the day, we don't have the ovals like a Pocono, Michigan, to give them experience to race on such a large super speedway type oval. We have Nashville, 1.5-mile oval, but lower bank and concrete surface, just very different.
A mile and a third, not even a mile and a half.
Mile and a third, correct?
It's right on that border, yeah.
And then you look at the star power that Indy NXT has had lately. Current names, former names. I mean, we got Dennis, who of course is running away with the championship. A lot of potential. Mile Rowe, a lot of attention. Will Power saw him, brought him up. He's climbing up. Hailie Deegan. That one sounds like a star. That is a star-studded lineup for Indy NXT race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And of course, if we had the Freedom 100, more potential sponsors, because now you could tell them what we're racing the oval. It's only 100 miles, but still, it is something. That could have probably helped Sophia flourish with her sponsorship deal, saying we're racing there. And of course, you look at the past drivers of Louis Foster, who's now an IndyCar, Jamie Chadwick, 2 years. Can you imagine seeing her run the oval in Indy NXT? And then, of course, Ernie Francis Jr., who got a lot of attention from the Tony Stewart racing experience, never ran the oval there. So, Emily, starting with you, is there no good reason why Indy NXT is not running the Freedom 100 at the oval?
Well, I think you've said it really well, Joe. I can see the argument of like you want your first win at the Indy Oval to be the 500 in the IndyCar series, just because of the prestige and the history and the heritage of it. But to your point, the entire intention of these feeder series is to give these younger drivers opportunities to gain real world experience and to get more training under their belt. So I mean, a lot of these drivers will say like the biggest, most important race of the year is the 500 for them. Obviously, they want to make sure that they're putting themselves in a good place to win the championship. But the emphasis on having a Indy 500 win to your name sometimes is greater in importance in terms of like the long-term recognition that you have in this sport. It's incredibly important. So to give those young drivers the opportunity to race in that on that course, to get a fraction of that under their belt would be potentially incredibly beneficial for them. I will say again, it would be a great marketing opportunity. Can you imagine if Hailie Deegan was there and like some kind of cross sponsorship promotion opportunity? I mean, you can see Indianapolis is really trying to, I mean, it's already an event, but we had the whole spectacle of the Weenie 500, and that brought out a lot of faces and a lot of, butts in seats. So Hailie Deegan, I agree with you, has the star power to draw that as well. The only argument I can think of that may have some valid weight to it is, given the carnage that we saw in F2 in Monaco of these younger drivers just getting swept up in a massive accident, I could see that being some sort of argument, because we saw these cars literally flying around Indianapolis and going airborne just because of how dangerous that is when you're going so fast. But again, these Indy NXT cars are not going at those speeds. So I think just safety could be the only thing I could think of. But Ben, curious on what your thoughts are.
Is that less safe than taking a driver who's never run on a speedway like IMS and putting them straight in an Indy car and having them try to go 230 in a 4-lap run? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I get that they're all out there at the same time for an Indy NXT race. And the car counts are back up again, but there are so many layers to this onion here. I mean, I think an argument against the Freedom 100 was there was a time where this series car count was in the single digits. Now we're back up to 20 cars here. So I think the spectacle of only having 8 cars on the IMS oval, and that maybe not being the spectacle that IndyCar would want for its top feeder series at the cathedral of speed that is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we don't have that problem anymore. The car counts are back up. Listen, I understand. I know you all were going crazy about the Weenie 500. It was really the Weenie 5. I want to make that clear, too. It was a 2-lap race for crying out loud. So we really should have been calling it the Weenie 5 because that's what it was. But what would be more thrilling during Carb Day on Friday? Seeing Wienermobiles go maybe 70 miles an hour down the main straightaway, or seeing the stars of tomorrow in Indy NXT run a 100-mile race to get ready for what's coming in their careers to compete in the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500. I would most certainly take the latter. Maybe there's a place for the former somewhere in the month of May schedule. I don't know. But if we could only have one, if you're giving me the choice for what I want on Carb Day on Friday before the Indianapolis 500, I would much rather see the Freedom 100 again. Joe, I know you mentioned that epic 4-wide finish between Peter Dempsey and I've got to pull up the results here. Who else was involved in that? Gabby Chavez was second that day. Sage Karam was third. Munoz was fourth. All those guys went. I mean, it's unfortunate because Dempsey was really the only one that didn't get a shot at IndyCar after that, and he was the one that stole the show there, literally coming to the line. I remember the booth saying, "Look how staged this picture looks. That's an actual race. Got to be certainly the closest 4-wide spread ever in the history of Indianapolis Motor Speedway." And then I still remember the last time we ran this race, 2019, the last one before the pandemic hit, and a photo finish involving Oliver Askew winning that race. And I think set him up for the next couple of years in his career in a strong season that he was having. So I want to see this race come back, not just for Hailie Deegan. Obviously, I know we're talking about this on the Women in Motorsports show. I think it would be great for her if this is something that she wants to do with the rest of her career. She's one of many drivers that I think would benefit from running at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Oval in a 100-mile race in Indy NXT cars. I understand why we didn't do that in 2020, but I don't understand why we are not doing that again here post-pandemic, so to speak. I think it's time to bring this race back. There's clearly a market for it, a fan base that wants to see it come back, and I think the timing is perfect with where this series is right now. We've got so many young, talented drivers. And I think what you've seen to be quite honest, over the last couple of years with Nolan Siegel and Jacob Abel getting bumps, maybe we're not doing well enough of a job to prepare these Indy NXT alums, so to speak, for qualifications for the Indianapolis 500. And maybe it would be a little bit easier for them to make that transition, particularly if they're doing it with a smaller team or a one-off entry, if we gave them a chance to run the oval in the Indy NXT cars and use that to springboard their Indianapolis 500 attempts the following year.
Their following Indianapolis 500 attempts, that would be a huge springboard. I mean, even when you look at it was brought up, you got Formula 2, Formula 3 at Monaco. In NASCAR, you have the trucks, ARCA, Xfinity, all at Daytona during Daytona 500 race weekend. It just makes sense that you got to highlight. I don't think it's good enough, the road course. You can still keep the road course at the beginning of the months, but I do think it's important. Give your Indy NXT drivers that opportunity to shine, steal the headlines. Because, I mean, can you imagine if, I know this is all hypothetical, if Dennis or a surprise winner, photo finish, that's going to put more eyeballs on Indy NXT for the rest of the season. I want to see how these drivers are doing. I want to see their next few races, how close. And then the storylines of, hey, they're looking for sponsors. Well, I mean, if this Weenie 500 got people talking about it, can you imagine another 4-wide finish, another epic finish of any sort on Carb Day? I just think it just makes sense. I mean, and even if we have a year of a low car count, okay, 8 doesn't look that great, but this is more about the racing development, not so much the show. The show is just included with the race, and we're not going to try to put DRS or anything to enhance the race, and the racing product is just as good. So it just makes sense to me that we need to put them on the stage, because this will help Indy NXT gain those sponsors. I mean, I'm glad they got a TV deal. We know they didn't exactly have the greatest TV deal before, and now this is the opportunity. I mean, if people are listening, we encourage everyone to comment. Do you want to see the Indy NXT Freedom 100 come back? I just think that'd be the perfect way to end the day, and you could have the Weenie 500 start the day, get people excited, the pit road competition, then the Freedom 100. That's a great carb day. I would not see why. You'll bring a lot of fans and a lot more media attention too. So hopefully we see that happen. With that said, we're just about out of time. So let's go to our shiny moment. We encourage everyone to share their one shiny moment. Emily, we'll be starting out with you. What is your shiny moment?
Ben's gonna kill me. So I agree with both of you. Love the idea of bringing back the Freedom 100. I'm also an advocate of that, but I'm going to tell you, I lost my ever-loving mind for the Weenie 500. How great of the female representation did we get in that field between the drivers and the co-pilots? Shout out to Miss Mustard Maddie Myers of the Slaw Dog team, who won. She's obviously a brand ambassador for Oscar Mayer. But my sincere one shining moment, I always become unhinged at this part and I go and break the rules. Encourage everyone to check out Catherine Legg's most recent podcast drop. Obviously, she raced in the Xfinity race on Saturday in Charlotte. Day ended early, unfortunately, but she had the iconic and hero Janet Guthrie on her show this week, and really insightful conversation. Obviously, there's so many books and media out there to learn about Janet's story, but what an opportunity to have the woman herself give insight, like AJ Foyt being one of the advocates for her to be in the field with the guys when no one else was backing her up. So a great month of May. I'll just say that, because the next time that we'll all be on the air together, it will be June and this great month will be over, but just ultimately a great month of May for all of the women that we've discussed on this show.
All right. Well, on that note, I'll do a fun one and then a more serious one as well. Tate McRae, you killed it with Just Keep Watching, the song from the F1 album that dropped last night. I'm so hyped for that movie now. She did an absolutely fantastic job with that music video, and that's going to be my song on repeat for the rest of the summer, I think. So that's one shining moment right there. But again, on a more serious note, I will say Kelly Earnhardt Miller's role in the new Earnhardt documentary on Prime, I think is something that has maybe been overlooked a little bit. But I've appreciated getting to learn more about her part of the Earnhardt family story as well. And I know the 2 other episodes just dropped yesterday as we're recording this early Thursday morning. They are certainly on my watch list. I might do that after we're finishing taping this show, to be quite honest. Really excited to see how they tie it all together. But I know Kelly played a big part in the production of that and putting that together, and appreciate her being open enough to share her part of her family story as well. So that's definitely worthy of a shining moment for me also.
I don't have a comical shining moment. The one shining moment I do have is sort of features 2 people. The first one, Georgia Hannaberry working pit road for the Indianapolis 500 with Jamie Little. Great seeing them both working the Indianapolis 500 in roles where I feel they have proven their work. Of course, Georgia Hannaberry was on IndyCar radio for a while. They started getting opportunities with NBC Sports, INDY NXT. See her being a full-time year-round pit road reporter, her and Jamie Little there, I think that was really great. And then when you look over at the NASCAR side too, Daniel Trotta hosting the Amazon Prime program, leading the wrap-up show, post-race show over there in Prime. Great to see her back. Of course, she was with Fox, got let go, still on Sirius XM radio, now with Prime. Everyone's glowing about Prime's coverage of the Coca-Cola 600. She's part of that team. So those 3 are part of my shining moment. And we encourage everyone to subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our programs this week. We got Formula One pre-race show. Then Sunday, we're going to have our NASCAR pre-race show plus the wrap-up show after Formula One IndyCar at Detroit. And then, of course, Grid Encore Monday, Grid Tonight, every Wednesday, your weekly motorsports news program. And we'll do it all over again next race weekend right here on the Grid Network. Subscribe, hit the bell icon. Once again, a big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin Michelle, Mark, Robin, David, Matthew, for investing in the Grid Network. Link in the video description. For Ben and Emily, I'm Joe. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time. Check your smoke detector batteries in case they're beeping as well. You'll all have a good night.